Hello friends, my name is Aubrey. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to have you all here with me today. So today what we're going to do is we are going to go through some winter book recommendations. So I did this for fall and I'll link those two videos down below because I did split it into two. But we're going to do the same thing today where I'm going to recommend to you any books that I have on my shelves that I've read, so I'm not going through TBR books, but any books that I own that I've already read that represent winter to me, or I think are really good to read during the winter, either because they're set in the winter, they have an icy setting, like the place where they are is just naturally snowy or icy, or they, for some reason, something about the story or the aesthetic makes me think of winter, or I think is perfect to read during the winter. So that is what we are going to do today. But before we get started, I just want to show you, because I'm so excited, I got this new hoodie. It is a Haku hoodie from Spirited Away. I'm going to show you the back. I don't know how well you'll be able to see it on camera, but it's got Haku on it. It's so cool. Haku is one of my favorite characters ever. I love him so much. And I'm just really excited about this hoodie. So, anyway, we have 20 books or series to go through. And if you've seen some of my other videos, you may know that I am not good at making very short videos. So we'll see how long this one ends up, and I do have to go to work in a little while, so I'm gonna have to stop and eat lunch and go to work at some point. So we'll see how many we can get through today. If we need to split this video into two like I did with my fall book recommendations, then we will, but we'll just see. We'll try to get through as many as we can. All right, and I again apologize if I sound croaky at any point. I am feeling better, but I think I'm actually maybe coming down with something else, unfortunately, because I've been very congested the last couple days. So I apologize if my voice sounds at all weird during this video. I will edit out all of the coughing and sneezing. So we're going to start off with a classic, a nice Christmas classic that I read for the first time in its entirety last year, and that is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I, like very many people, was very familiar with this story pretty much my whole life. I've seen so many different adaptations of it, from the Muppets to Disney, old black and white movies. I love A Christmas Carol so much. It is one of my favorite stories, but I had never actually read the book, and I read it for the first time last year. I mean, I'd read like snippets of it, pieces of it for, different events in class and things like that, but I'd never read the whole book, and it's very short, and it was wonderful. This was my first time actually reading a Charles Dickens book, like I said, in its entirety from start to finish. And I fell in love with his writing style. His language, his prose is beautiful. I love the way this book is framed with the narrator. Like telling the story, it really makes you feel like you're sitting in front of a fire and there is someone sitting there telling a story to you. And it's just so cozy and so heartwarming. And of course, it does take place at Christmas. So if you are unfamiliar with the story of A Christmas Carol, we follow Ebenezer Scrooge, who is kind of the very opposite of a cheerful person. He is very obsessed with money and wealth, and he is very cheap. He has an assistant named Bob Cratchit who he does not pay very well. He doesn't allow him to use his coal for the fire in the office very often because, of course, coal costs money, and Scrooge tries to save a penny anywhere he can. So at the beginning of the story, on Christmas Eve, Scrooge is visited by the ghost of his dead business partner, Jacob Marley. And Jacob Marley tells Scrooge that he himself has been cursed to wander the earth bound by chains as a spirit for a certain period of time because of his greed and selfishness when he was alive. And so he is here to warn Scrooge that if he does not change his ways, he will follow along that same path. And he tells Scrooge that in order to help him, he is going to be visited by 3 more spirits who will kind of help him to realize his folly, and they are all connected to Christmas. So we have the spirit of Christmas past, Christmas present, and Christmas future. And so they all visit Scrooge, and this is just the epitome of a character having a change of heart and coming to realize the grievousness of their behavior and realizing how to be kind to people. So Scrooge is like the original Grinch. And I love this book so much. I cannot recommend it to you enough. I especially recommend you read it like either on Christmas Eve or right at Christmas. That's what I did. I started this Christmas Eve night and then finished it Christmas evening the next day. And it was delightful. It was wonderful. It was so cozy and heartwarming. Highly recommend. Even if you've seen multiple movies, TV shows, whatever, I don't care. You need to read the book because it's great. Then the next book that I have to recommend to you is Eluan Sparrow by Karen Hess. This one has nothing to do with Christmas, but it does take place actually in the Aleutian Islands in Alaska. And it takes place during World War II. So in 1942, the Japanese Navy invaded the Aleutian Islands, where the Aleut people had been living for generations upon generations. And so in this story, we follow a young Aleutian girl named Vera, or Vera. I'm going to go with Vera. And we see how her life is impacted by the war and by people coming in and basically commandeering her people's land. And it is pretty heartbreaking at times, but it is a very well written story. It's basically written in verse, like these little snippets that Vera has written of events that are happening during the war with everything that they're having to go through and that she's having to deal with. And it does have some little illustrations in there, so you can see it's written in these little short, little like 1 page, half a page poems. And it is told from her perspective, so it is in a first person perspective. But I think that this is a really, even though it's fiction, it's historical fiction, and Vera is not a real person, the author did a lot of research into what these people had to go through, and the bombing that happened, the invasion, and the illness that was brought to them, which, if you know anything about history, happens a lot when people go to a new place and encounter a group who has not been exposed to their endemic illnesses that they have now brought with them. So it can be very, very heartbreaking. So it's not like, it's the exact opposite of A Christmas Carol. This is not a cozy Christmassy read, but it does take place, like I said, in Alaska's Aleutian Islands, so in a place that is very cold and wintry. And I think that it is a very important story because, like I said, even though Vera is not a real person, these events did happen to real people. And I think that it's very important that we learn from history and that we are aware of what people have gone through and try not to repeat the same behaviors that have happened in the past. So it's a very important story. I think it's very, very short. I think it is a middle grade, perhaps. Yeah, so it is a middle grade. It says ages 10 to 14. But so it's very easy to read. But I just think that it's very powerful, and it's really short because, like I said, it's written in verse. So these short little poems that just give snippets into the events of 1942. So that is Eluan Sparrow. Not a cozy book to get you in the Christmas spirit, but I think still a good book for the winter months anyway. All right, so I will admit I do have a repeat on here from my fall book recommendations because I think that this one is also really good for the winter, and that is The Angel of the Crows by Catherine Addison. So I'm going to be really brief with this because I did talk about it, like I said, in that, I think the videos were called like Autumnal Books to Read this Fall or something like that. So I did talk about it there, but this is very Sherlock Holmes inspired. We have a world where supernatural creatures live alongside regular humans. everything from vampires to werewolves to angels. And we follow our main character, Dr. Doyle, Dr. J.H. Doyle, who is an army doctor, army surgeon, returns to London after being injured by a fallen angel in the war in Afghanistan, and meets the angel Crow. So angels are attached to a specific location that is their domain that they protect and take care of, and if they lose that domain, they can fall. And this falling can make them feral, it can cause mass destruction. But Crow is different because Crow claims all of London as his domain. So Dr. Doyle and Crow become friends. They join together to solve crimes, very much Sherlock Holmes and Watson coded, but they are still their own unique characters, and it takes place in Victorian England. And that's why I've mentioned this before. Victorian settings to me, I think, are perfect for winter, also fall. So this one, like I said, is a repeat, but I think if you didn't read it in the fall, it's great to also read in the winter. And also I'm trying to push my agenda of getting as many people to read Catherine Addison's books as I can. So, but this book, it really is great. It really is great. There's like Jack the Ripper in the background. They are walking along the streets of London and the surrounding areas in England, solving crimes, meeting supernatural creatures. Sherlock Holmes, I think, is a great book as well to read in the winter, and so you should read this too, because like I said, it's very Sherlock Holmes coded, but our characters are still very much their own people. And Crow is precious because he's not human, and he tries so hard to understand people, and he just has such a hard time, and he's just such a wonderful character, and I love him. Next, we have another book. This one is actually a series that I'm recommending based on the setting, much like The Angel of the Crows. So this is the Bartimaeus trilogy by Jonathan Stroud. This is book 1, The Amulet of Samarkand. As you can see, it is very tattered. My dog that I had several years ago ate the corner. And it is also just very, very, very beaten up because I've had it since I was a kid. But this series is so good. More people need to read it. It is amazing. But the reason I think it belongs on this list is the setting. So it takes place in an alternate version of our world where magicians, or people who can summon spirits from this other realm called the Other Place, they can summon jinn, afrits, imps, things of that nature. They are the people who are in power in a lot of places, including England. And we follow in this first book a young magician named Nathaniel. He is an apprentice. He is studying to become a magician, and his master is very not nice. He is kind of corrupt, like a lot of these magicians are, unfortunately. He is very selfish. He's very cruel to Nathaniel, and Nathaniel summons a djinn named Bartimaeus to help protect him. And also, they get involved in a bit of a plot that had to do with his master. So his master is killed, Nathaniel and Bartimaeus flee, and suddenly they are involved in this mystery of why his master was killed, what he was involved in. It's now affecting Nathaniel. It's wonderful. It is told from both first person and third person point of views because Bartimaeus is telling the story, and so his chapters are in first person, and then the chapters from Nathaniel's perspective are in third person. And it is really, really, really delightful. But like I said, the reason I'm suggesting this for winter is because of the setting. Because we have this like kind of darker side to English society, British society, where these magicians are ruling the jinn that are being summoned. I don't know. A lot of this just really feels like I said, I feel like Victorian style settings really fit the cold months. This one takes place in England. The next one mostly takes place in Prague. And then the third one, we're back to England again for the most part. And like I said, it just really feels like a wonderful story to read when you're curled up with a blanket and the fire roaring and a hot drink, and getting to see kind of the sinister sides of this society. But it is also full of humor because Bartimaeus is hilarious. Hilarious. And the characters in here are just so wonderful. You get to watch Nathaniel grow up through these 3 books and see him change as a person. And I don't want to say anything else because I don't want to spoil it, but it's wonderful. It's delightful. I recommend it so highly to anyone. And also, I just think fantasy is really nice for the winter for some reason. I feel like a lot of people feel that way because I've heard other people mention that as well. But I just think it's perfect. I think it's perfect for the winter. I think it's perfect year round, honestly. But something about just the setting and the feeling of this society that is being run by magicians and these spirits from this other plane of existence. It just feels really good for the cold, blustery winter months, I guess. Then we have another Christmas book, and that is The Best Christmas Pageant Ever by Barbara Robinson. So this is a children's book, but I have loved this book since I was very small. I actually, the kids at my church, we've always done like Christmas plays, and when I was a kid one year, my mom actually did this play with us, and it was so fun. And we actually like had tons of people come see it where we live. It was wonderful. It was a lot of fun. I think it was my favorite Christmas play that we ever did when I was a kid. But if you've never heard of The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, we follow a little girl. What is her name? Okay, I cannot remember her name, but our main character is a little girl whose town... So the town in which she lives, there's this family called the Herd. There's this family named the Herdmans, and a lot of people just really look at them and see nothing but troublemakers. But one year, our main character's mom is put in charge of the annual Christmas pageant because the lady who usually is in charge of it has broken her leg and can't do it. So she decides that she is going to get the Herdmans to play parts in the play, in the pageant. And so a lot of people are very much against this. They think they're going to ruin it. They basically, like I said, see them as nothing but troublemakers. But she's determined that these kids are going to participate and are going to have a good time and are going to hopefully see that they can amount to more than just causing trouble. And it is so good. Like I said, it's a kid's book, but it's just so sweet and heartwarming. And if you've ever been in a Christmas play, then maybe it'll be a little nostalgic for you as well. Alright, so next we have a manga series that I'm going to recommend. And I've mentioned multiple times in previous videos that I think that this series is very fitting for the winter. And that is Black Butler by Yana Toboso. So in this series, we follow Ciel Phantom Hive. He is 12 years old when the series starts, and he has just gone through something very traumatic. His entire family has been murdered. He had disappeared for a while. With his disappearance was connected to his family's murder, but you don't really know exactly what happened to him at the very beginning of the series. But when he returns, he is very changed. He is kind of jaded and sad and not like an innocent child anymore. And he comes back with a butler named Sebastian. But Sebastian is not human. Sebastian is a demon. And he has made a deal with Ciel that he will help to care for him because Ciel is a child and he does need someone to care for him. He's never had to do much to take care of himself before. Help him run his estate, help him with anything he needs, essentially serve as his butler. And in return, he will one day get Ciel's soul. So really, really dark premise. But I've mentioned before, I'm really hopeful, fingers crossed, for a happy ending for this series because you see, especially in the manga, which I watched the anime first, which the anime is still ongoing, as is the manga. But you see, I've noticed, especially in the manga, some more like human characteristics to Sebastian and like these emotions that he is feeling and exhibiting in his behavior. He is still very much a demon. But I don't know, you see a different side to him at times. And I really like this series. It takes place in Victorian England. So again, the setting for me feels perfect for winter. Ciel lives in this big manor house. He has a toy company that his family owns that he is now in charge of. He has servants who help out in the house who he has taken in from different unfortunate circumstances that you find out as you continue through the series. And it's just about him and Sebastian going on these different adventures because Ciel has, on top of inheriting the earldom and the toy company, he has also inherited his father's title of the Queen's watchdog, or the Queen's Guard dog, which means that he is now in charge of helping to police sort of the underworld where polite society does not go and is not involved. And so Sebastian helps him with this. So they have to solve different crimes and mysteries, and it can get, like I said, quite dark at times. But it's also just really fun. And Sebastian is very overpowered, which is I like a good overpowered character. I think that it's really interesting to see people's reactions to them, and also I have no problem with them easily beating their opponents. So it's really, really fun. Like I said, it can get really, really dark though, so do be aware of that if that's not something that you would be okay with, because they are dealing with murders, and sometimes children are involved, sometimes it's adults, but murders and kidnappings and different things of that nature. So there is that. But it's really, really fun. And the art style, I will say, you can kind of tell, I don't know how much you can tell, but at the very beginning, I feel like the mangaka, the people were a little awkward at times, like the way their faces and stuff looked. But they have improved. I think Yana Toboso is a lady. I could be wrong, but the creator has improved significantly as the series goes on, and the backgrounds are always beautiful and the details, but the way the people are drawn improves really quickly, and I love this art style. Like, once you see this creator coming into their own as an artist and getting a bit more experience with this, I think it's delightful and really, really beautiful visually. But it is a manga, and it does get dark, which means that there is going to be dark imagery in here, so just be aware of that. But I think, like I said, the setting is perfect for the winter, because Victorian society, for some reason, like I said, makes me think of winter, and they're wandering around this manor house. It does take place in multiple seasons, but a lot of the time the clothes they're wearing just make me think of winter. Ciel wears a lot of capes and top hats, and we do see snow at times in certain parts of the series, and I don't know, I really enjoyed watching this anime in the winter, and I think I'm going to really enjoy continuing the manga series in the winter as well. Okay, so the next one, when I show it to you, you're going to not think that this looks like a wintry book at all, because the cover does not look snowy, cold by any means. But I promise I will explain how it fits this season. But that is The Buried and the Bound, which is the first book in the series of the same name by Rachel Hassan. And the reason I'm putting this one in this category is because it does start out around Christmas. The first scene that we see is actually at a Christmas fair. And there is a lot of snow in this book. There is a lot of darkness and dark creatures. And I just think that I wish that I had read it in the winter as opposed to spring/summer. So, but in this story, we follow three main characters. Aziza, who is a hedge witch, who is being raised by her grandfather because her parents were killed in some sort of event that had to do with their magic and protecting their town. And so Aziza has kind of taken it upon herself to kind of protect their town and monitor the boundaries between the human, non-magical world and the world of the supernatural and the magical. So she helps to get spirits back across the border, deals with all sorts of creatures from different types of lore and mythology, like kelpies and all kinds of things. So we have her perspective, but she has noticed that the barrier is weakening, and the fairies, the different shadows, all these different entities, wood nymphs, everything are coming into her world much more frequently, which can be very, very dangerous for everyone involved, humans and not. So we follow her, and then we follow a boy named Leo, who has a curse that has been placed on his family, and the way that it affects him is that he has forgotten his true love. So once he meets his true love and then hits a certain age, he will forget them. He knows he has someone that he loved very much in the past, but he can't remember anything about them. And no one can tell him about them who was aware of them. Like, his family can't tell him because it causes him pain, and he still doesn't remember. So he is desperately trying to find a way to break this curse because he can tell that he is missing someone who he cares about deeply. And so when he finds out that Aziza is a witch, he kind of joins forces with her and is like, I will help you if you help me try to find a way to break this curse. Then we have our third perspective, who is Tristan. And Tristan, making sure I got his name right. Yes, it is Tristan. Tristan is at the beginning of the story. We don't know much about him, but we know that he is serving this evil entity who is having him basically help her to get victims to increase her power. And we don't know why Tristan is serving her. We just know that he's kind of been tricked into it in a way, was promised something in return, and now can't get out of this deal. And so Tristan is... I really like Tristan's character, but we're following these three teenagers. I don't want to say much more about Tristan because I don't want to spoil anything, but we're following these three characters and seeing how they come together and meet to fight this entity, this evil that is kind of overtaking their town. And like I said, it starts out at Christmas. There is a lot of forest imagery in here, like they go in the woods a lot, but something about it, I can't remember if the entire book takes place in the winter. I feel like a good portion of it does, but I can't quite remember how much of it. But I just think that I remember wishing as I was reading it that I had read it in the winter, and so I'm recommending it to you now because I think that reading something in the season where it takes place or where it seems to just fit can really enhance the experience. So I'm recommending it to you because I wish that I had read it in the winter. Alright, now we have another manga series, and that is The Case Study of Vanitas by Jun Mochizuki. So in this story, again, we're in an alternate version of our world. It takes place in Paris. But in this world, there are vampires that live alongside humans, and the vampires were all created under the red moon, but there was one vampire who was created under the blue moon, and the vampire of the blue moon is feared by all of the other vampires because they believe that this vampire has the power to destroy them. So we start the story off with our main character, Noe, who is right here. And Noe is a vampire, and his teacher so Noe is obsessed with the Vampire of the Blue Moon and their book, which is said to have a lot of power to it. And Noe is traveling to Paris on an airship, so this is like steampunk vampires in alternate Paris. Yeah. So Noe is traveling on an airship to Paris to try to follow up a lead on the Vampire of the Blue Moon and their book, and his teacher has kind of given him this information and allowed him to go because Noe doesn't have a family. He is an orphan. And so he's raised by this man who he calls teacher. And on this trip, Noe meets this human named Vanitas. And Vanitas is a self-proclaimed vampire doctor. However, Vanitas shares the name of the Vampire of the Blue Moon and also has what he claims is their book. And this allows him to manipulate vampires' true names. And he is trying to save vampires from this sort of corruption that overtakes them and makes them kind of go feral or act in ways that they wouldn't normally. And so the two of them become friends. They try to investigate these cases together. We see, the series is still ongoing. We're on volume 10 at this point, which I haven't read volumes 9 and 10 yet. I'm actually planning to read them probably in January. And we see them trying to investigate what is happening to these vampires, what is causing this corruption, and they investigate all these different cases and instances, and it's so fun, and seeing them learn about each other and about each other's past and histories and their dynamic shifting, and it's just really good. I will give a warning. There are some parts with two female characters where the female characters, in particular, Vanitas also, but so with Noe and his childhood friend, she really likes him and he is not aware of this, and she kind of, she doesn't tell him she likes him, but she does kind of take advantage of the fact that he doesn't know that she likes him, and she doesn't really there's no gosh, I don't really know how to describe it, but it's just awkward and uncomfortable because you're thinking like you are being dishonest and putting him in a situation that he's not aware of the context of this. So be aware of that. And then Vanitas and this other female vampire, he kisses her without consent, but then she also kind of kisses him without consent. And it's just this really weird dynamic of the two of them. She starts to really like him, but I don't know if he really likes her or if he's just like trying to like her. It's just kind of weird. So I don't love that, but I do love those two female characters. I just think that those scenes can be a little uncomfortable, so do be aware of that. But Vanitas and No Way and their dynamic together is amazing. I love them. And their other friends that they meet and stuff. So I really recommend it. And because, like I said, it takes place. See, Paris often reminds me of spring, but something about this series with the vampires, and I think the arc we're in now is very wintry. There's a lot of snow. And the things that they're investigating, and there's one arc where they have to go down into the catacombs. And I just think it's really good for winter. So there you go. Also, the art, gorgeous. Gorgeous art in this series. Okay, then we have another middle grade book, this time a series that I'm recommending, and that is Chronicles of Ancient Darkness by Michelle Paver. So this is the first book, Wolf Brother. So this takes place during the sort of Ice Age, and we follow our main character, Torak, who at the very beginning of the book, his father is killed. And Torak ends up finding this wolf cub, and they end up bonding. And Torak is on the run from the creature that killed his father. So he finds out that he and his wolf cub companion, he has this like ability where he learns how to talk to wolf, which is what he names the cub. Very creative. But he learns how to talk to him and communicate with him, and they form this really strong, unbreakable bond with each other. Hence the name Wolf Brother. But it turns out that there is this prophecy of sorts that says that they can perhaps defeat this evil that is stalking the land. And like I said, the series takes place, it's like prehistorical, pre-written history. And there is a lot of like Ice Age. I'm pretty sure it takes place during the Ice Age because we have a lot of creatures that would be alive then, and there is, in at least one book, they are actually out on glaciers and like ice flows and things. So I just think that this is a really good series to read during the winter. And I feel like my synopsis was not very good, but I really don't know how much I can say without spoiling the story. But Torak and Wolf, I will say there is a lot more to Torak's ability to communicate with Wolf than you know at first. So you really need to just continue the series to find out what exactly is going on. And I loved this series so much as a kid, and I still it's great. My mom read it as well when I was a child and when I was reading it, and she loved it. And I just think that it is really, really well done. Michelle Paver has actually continued the series with like a spin-off kind of, or like a continuation of it from the original ending point that I really want to get a hold of and keep reading because I love these characters so much. But it's just really good. And like I said, this like pre-written history era during, I'm pretty sure, the Ice Age. It's like these old ancient forests and people living off of the land and moving around from place to place and hunting, fishing, foraging. It's just really, really focused on the natural world, and I can't recommend it enough. And like I said, I think it's great for the winter. Then we have another series, and this is another middle grade series, and probably a lot of people have already read this or at least heard of it, but that is The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis, especially book 2, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That is the one that I'm most recommending to you, but you really need to read book 1. A lot of people who've only seen the movies don't realize that that's not the first book. The first book is actually The Magician's Nephew, so you really need to start there, trust me. But The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe has so much winter imagery because at that point Narnia has been overtaken by eternal winter because of the evil White Queen. And we have kids trying to save Narnia. And I feel like I don't want to say too much about this because, like I said, you really should read The Magician's Nephew first. But a lot of people are very familiar with the story, especially because of the movies that came out in the early 2000s. Well, when did the movie come out? 2005, I think, must have been, because this is obviously media tie-in edition and it came out in 2005. So, um, it's got so much snow, so much snow. A lamppost in the snow in the forest, a queen who has taken over and rides on a sled pulled by polar bears and makes the winter eternal, a frozen river, um, snowy forests, a grand battle. Santa Claus is in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So, I mean, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with it. It's just perfect. It's just perfect for the winter. All right, and I think the last one that I'm going to go over today, because I really do need to go eat lunch and then go to work. And I had some technical difficulties with my phone earlier, so there's like, y'all won't see it, but there was a time where I was just sitting here fiddling with my phone for a good while. So anyway, I think this will be the last one we do today, and then we'll have to save the rest for another video, for a part 2. But that is The Goblin Emperor. This is the first book in the Chronicles of Ozreth, again by Catherine Addison, so continuing my agenda of getting everyone to read Catherine Addison's books. But The Goblin Emperor, we follow Maya, who is the youngest son of the Emperor of the Elven Kingdom. The problem is that Maya is half goblin. His dad married his mom for a political marriage, and after his previous wife had passed away. And there is a lot of prejudice against goblins, a lot of stereotypes that are kind of perpetuated about them. They are very much looked down upon within the Elven Kingdom. And so Maya is sent away from court to be raised in this very, very isolated house by his cousin, who is very cruel to him. And so Maya never expects to enter court or anything, but one day at the beginning of the story, he gets a message that his father and all of his older brothers, who he never really got the chance to know, have all perished in an airship accident. And so now Maya is emperor, just all of a sudden. So we follow him having to travel back to, the palace, becoming emperor, navigating the court and this new political situation that he's never really been involved in. I mean, he's learned some about it from his cousin, but not the ins and outs, all of the intricacies. And we see him, there's like I said, a lot of prejudice against him, and there are people who are trying to use him for their own purposes, people who don't want him to be emperor, people who are very much against him. And so, but then he's trying to figure out who he can trust and which people are being honest. And the friends that he ends up making in here are delightful. I love them so much. And I love Maya. He is such a good-hearted protagonist. He's wonderful. But the reason this book is on the winter list is because it is a steampunk story, and something about this palace and this court system just feels very cold to me. And I just think it's perfect for winter. I think political fantasy is really, really good to read in the winter. And that is what this is. It is very, very, very character-focused political fantasy. That's it. There are no like huge war scenes. We literally only follow Maya and see him navigating this new role that he has to play and these new people that he's meeting. And it's really good. It's really good. I cannot recommend this to you enough. You need to read it because it's wonderful. And like I said, something about the cold palace and this new life that he's found himself in, I just think it's perfect for winter, especially like January when it's just bleak and cold outside. So there you go. All right, so that's where we're going to stop today because like I said, I have to go and get ready and eat something before work. So we will continue the rest of this video in a part 2. It won't be next week because next week will be my November book haul, so it'll be the week after that. But I hope that this was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I feel like I was really rambly today, and I'm really sorry about that. I hope that this was fun. I hope you guys found some new books that you might want to add to your winter TBRs. If you've read any of these, please let me know what you think. Just keep your thoughts spoiler free, please. Or if you're interested in any of these, I would love to hear that. Or if you have any books that you would like to add on to recommend to me and to everyone else watching this video that you think are perfect for the winter. I would love to hear what you have to say. I genuinely love talking to you guys in the comments. If you want to leave an emoji, either with your comment or just to let me know that you were here, you can just pop an emoji down there. It is Thanksgiving, so let's do, I guess, a turkey. That's kind of sad because I feel like a lot of people eat turkey on Thanksgiving. Is there a cornucopia emoji? I have no idea. If there's not a cornucopia emoji, you can just put a little snowman. We can do a snowman or a pie. Is there a pie emoji? Pick your favorite Thanksgiving or winter themed emoji and you can put it down in the comments. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you're having a wonderful day or a wonderful night wherever you are. I will see you hopefully in 2 weeks for part 2, and I hope to see you next week for my next video. Bye! Hey Mom, do you think they want a greenie? Do they want a greenie? A greenie? Oh, a greenie? A greenie? Do they want a greenie? Alright, let's get some greenies. Let's get some greenies.